Okay, everybody, welcome back. So this next session is about... Come in. So one of the things I'm particularly proud about regarding WebAssembly is the fact that it's fully formalized, right? So most of you here are probably aware of that. The complete formalization is part of the official specification, right? And as I like to put it, it's actually formalized really from the first byte of input to the last bit of values in memory, like really end to end. And that, of course, was a lot of manual labor going into that and a lot of work going into mechanizing stuff. And just last year, we have kind of some groups have gotten together and started a great new project about making this better. And there are at least two lines of work that flow into this, and we're going to hear about both of them in this session. The first one is by Philippa, and after that we will have Suk-Young showing the other side of things. So Philippa, shoot.
So hello everybody, and just to say that's not quite the right description of what my talk is going to be, but by the end of my talk you'll go, yep, that's what he meant. And I've been wondering whether to take my coat, have my jacket or not. It's too hot. I'm channeling Simon Peyton-Jones by taking off the jacket almost immediately, or jumper. So I've been working on mechanization of language standards for really quite a little time, using the Koch theorem prover. And it's sort of, I don't even know why I'm doing it. In the sense, I mean, it's brilliant, the area. I'm from Edinburgh. I knew Robin Milner. I very much have that in my bones, but I'm not a Koch theorem prover expert. I rely on others to do really, a lot of the work. But I do have opinions, and sometimes those opinions have some effect sometimes. And so I actually want to point out Rao here. You have to look round and be embarrassed, because he's through his PhD has learnt the Koch theorem prover and has been part of that, and had lots of help from many people, including Conrad Watt down here, who's the mechanization guru for WASM. So you know what WASM is. I'm not going to say. Let me just point out there was the draft, and now we're on WASM 1.0. And Conrad, he knew about language mechanization from being at Imperial, and then moved to Cambridge, and he did some mechanization that had real effect on that draft specification that I think people probably know. And because of our previous interaction with the Koch theorem prover for mechanization of JavaScript standard, Conrad and I came together to work on this WASM Koch mechanization with a huge number of people. So this is Jean Pichon, this is Martin Baudin, and they're doing different things, but both in their way quite Koch experts. So some of this is their story, and then we veer off after a while. And there's a huge amount of work that's gone on from that basic starting mechanization. And well, huge, but mechanization is quite hard, so we're really doing quite well in terms of we've started. But I only want to put, and there's these awesome guys doing lots and lots of stuff. That one's just nodded. But I actually want to pinpoint this one today, because what Conrad has done is a fast interpreter that's verified correct in Isabelle, that's used for as a fuzzing oracle by the Bytecode Alliance. And so, that's getting right embedded in the heart of things. And so then we were going, yeah, but what about WASM ref for the Koch theorem prover? And why might we want that? Well, it's all about what does it mean to mechanize WASM well. And in particular, the way Conrad was doing it was totally the right way from the point of view of Isabel, but there was a lot of work and repeated work happening. And what does it mean to go to WASM 2.0? Ha, we've got type safety, he hasn't, he's got lots of work to do. So, that's not at all fair, but at the same time, this is about how do we do this in a way that we can keep up with the standard we're clinging on by our fingertips sometimes. And what Conrad did from the reason why it's fast, 2 reasons. One to do with he has better evaluation contexts, so he's not wasting work by having these more optimized evaluation contexts. And he's using mutable arrays to get speed up in action on the memory. But now we're in Cockland, having said how awesome Conrad is. And in particular, we've got an old interpreter that we've had for a long time. And basically the idea is you run in one step, you've got a configuration consisting of WASM store frame list instruction, and it does a one step to one of these guys, meaning either it goes to another configuration, it just does that one step, or it's saying, nope, no more left to do, we now got a value, or no more left to do, we're crashing, or you have intermediate results associated with break and return that I actually don't need to talk about at all in this talk. We can stay extremely simple, but there is this other stuff going on there that of course we've done. So this is old interpreter. And we've got, we have to do quite a bit of work. So we've got 2 type soundnesses, preservation, progress. We've got the executable interpreter function, and we've got the soundness of the interpreter with respect to the operational semantics. So that's the sort of old way of doing things. It's a very normal way of doing things. But we were asking our question, oh my goodness, we've got to go to WASM 2.0. How on earth do we do it, and can we do it in a way that we get more efficient? And we can. And there's different versions of answers of what it means that we can do it. And the first way comes from Phil Wadler, and he's the only reason why we were going anywhere near this stuff, because he sent us an email asking us if we could do what he'd done. So basically, here's progress and here's preservation. And I think it's folklore, but Phil's grabbed it, which is that one can oscillate between the two and end up getting an interpreter. If we've got a configuration that's well typed, we can either do a step or we terminate. And if we do a step from a well-typed place, we get another well-typed thing. So we can go around again and keep on going and getting that interpreter. And so in particular, Phil Wadler says, progress and preservation gives a sound interpreter for free, because that's how Phil is, and I am trying to channel a little bit. You see, I'm even a bit embarrassed having done that. It's not... And in particular, so there's a quote, and he says, does this work for our WASM proofs? So that's how we got started, and how we got started with an absolutely awesome MSc student, who is here. This guy, Stefan, who alas has gone. So before we worked with mechanizing these 4 separate things, and channeling Phil, we just mechanized 2 things, which is preservation and progress. And then for free, we get both the interpreter and the soundness of the interpreter with respect to the operational semantics. And just to do the flip side of that, there's also Adam Chapala going, oh yeah, is this the right way of doing things? But Phil's take would be, absolutely, yes it is, these proofs are beautiful and it is the right way of doing it. And let's see. So absolutely, I mean, Phil's right. You know, it is great what he's done. And in particular, you have less line count, and the point, it's much easier to maintain and add new features. And this is sort of where we're trying to think. But question mark, because I'm sure Phil has some opinions, that the existing proofs make it slow. I think you can get better and better with that, and I think Phil's been part of getting better with that. But in particular, we are in this extrinsic types world, and we do have to carry around the typing, the proof of the types. So we are having complicated stuff happening in the proofs that maybe Phil doesn't need so much. And in particular, we want real control of this interpreter because we want to make it fast like Conrad. Yeah? So we want to change the evaluation context. We want to change the data structure. How do we go? So in particular, the question is, can we control the interpreter definition more directly whilst keeping these proof maintenance properties? And then here's the Phil approach, which we just described like this. Preservation progress gives sound interpreter for free. And instead, we are doing something different. And in particular, we've got fancy interpreter. And fancy interpreter implies progress. Preservation is off to the side because of non-determinism. It's a different thing. One can start arguing about what it does it mean to actually combine them and all that, but that's a sort of different story, not for today. But so fancy interpreter, what does it mean? It's you've got a dependently typed interpreter and it's sound, and then the implication is saying it gives progress for free. Fancy can mean complicated too. So, you know, it's one has the caveats of all that. So here's the old way of doing things that I ran through with you. And here's the new way where you integrate soundness as you go with respect to the interpreter, and then the progress comes for free. So here is the first thing to think of, that basically, we're in this world of doing one step, and for example, if you do the one step and haven't continued, you end up in a place where you've doing a step in the operational semantics, and this certification is rolling along with the definition. And in particular, it's rolling along with the definition, and we're using dependent types, because here we have this ES, and we have to know that we've got a proof that it's making sense with respect to the operational semantics. Similarly, for values. Now, can anyone think of the most simplest interpreter you could define? Simplest, easiest, sort of. Sorry?
That satisfies this.
That satisfies that. Yes, got it. So you can have an interpreter that does absolutely nothing except for crash. And so we have to understand what's happening in the crash case to make sure that we've got this nice interpreter. So when it crashes, you're not going to get the configuration typed. We're in this extrinsic world. If it crashes, the types have gone wrong. And so this is sort of another way of saying, actually, we've got that progress proof if we've got this. Yes, because when you've got a type, it's either in that case or in that case. So here we're in the case where we've capturing that in the crash way. And actually, the MSc student Stefan, we hadn't got it quite right with the old interpreter, and we'd over crashed. And we got it right by even doing this. Oh, and by the way, Conrad hasn't done any crashes. Yeah, he said that I could say that.
Too many crashes.
Yeah, no, he does too many because he hasn't done this bit. He's not done. he let me say that. Yes.
So I'm really glad you got some way of classifying when crashes can occur. That's very important. I'm surprised at that one, because shouldn't preservation guarantee that you never crash? Should things always remain well typed?
The interpreter accepts an on-typed program as input. So the point is the crash case is only hit.
Oh, I see.
We're extrinsic, you're intrinsic.
Yes.
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
Very important point. Thank you.
Yeah. So, given these, what we had before, now we put up our hands, we've got preservation separately because of non-determinism, but with our fancy interpreter, if it's well typed, then this stuff comes for free. And it is the case that this is complicated, yeah? I mean, Ralph would say it's beautiful, yeah? So it depends a little bit on what head you have on, but it's no doubt it's more. But we get a lot because we have a direct way of having the runtime performance, and moving to WASM 2.0, we're going to be able to. And we're going to, just like with the fill approach, you've just got more structures, more expressions, so you have to handle those cases. It's not all intertwined with the proof derivations. But here's where I brought up the intrinsic versus extrinsic. So this is a good way of doing it because we've got the extrinsic WASM semantics. And I think there's quite a bit of discussion that's been happening of whether one should be intrinsic or extrinsic. No, WASM is extrinsic, but one can argue that there's some beautiful stuff going on with intrinsic. And this guy is saying, oh yeah, really, dependent types, ooh, not very nice in Coq. And the point is, I think one can accept some of that, but in another way, with that struggle, thank you, Rao, we have still managed to win in the sense that I will show you. So we've got some lemmas shared between all the different ways of doing it. So the infrastructure's all shared. And then we've got the old interpreter way of doing it. And it's this many lines of code of the Coq stuff. And then we've got porting the fill way to us, which is fill wins. This is the smallest number of lines, and there's something beautiful about that. But Phil wins on this slide. But then there's now, what about can we do fancy things? And in particular, the awesome MSc student Stefan did this one. And look, the lines are about the same. But actually, don't forget, we've got this stronger interpreter where we've also proved about the crashes. So that's not quite fair to say that. And now, in Rao's optimized representation, we're doing quite well, and the interpreter is quite optimized. Now, what do I mean by that? He's done the Conrad trick of getting better evaluation contexts, hasn't yet gone to the better data structure, and which is the better data structure and the appropriate thing for the Coq world, we'll find out. It's not so clear. And that's, Isabel has a good monads library, So we're only beginning to do benchmarks and thinking about this side of it, and in particular, we're not on the memory side, so we're really just on the basics. And for this one, we're on Fibonacci. And in particular, in the recursive case, in terms of execution time, this is Phil. Hello. This is Phil. And this is Conrad and us. So Isabel and Coq, with tiny improvement on the Isabel, but hardly. And now we go to the iterative Fibonacci. This is Phil, and this is us, and in particular, this is Isabel. This is where we are at the optimized place, and this is the reference interpreter that's written in OCaml without the mechanization. So yeah, we're actually not doing bad here, given how much we're now talking about. And we're quite pleased, I think that Rao is contented, and that's actually a very good thing. That's a standard. And anyway, just to drill down into this a little bit, it's just to say, so this lot is there. This is Phil. And in particular, Phil is at least quadratic. And so where is that going, and why and what's happening? And especially if one's in an intrinsic world, then some of the stuff is done beforehand because everything is typed. So then in that place, what does this turn linear? We don't know. We would love to unscramble this by the end of the week with Phil. I think that's the plan. So this has been just this tiny thing of here's WASM mechanization. We know that getting the definitions is one thing, but then actually doing these proofs, it's sort of at the MSc PhD level, but it is there's quite a lot of manpower going on. And so what does it mean to hook this up to the standard? How does one keep able to engage with the standard and get mechanization embedded there? We're already doing very well because the standard is acknowledging our efforts and saying, well done, tick. But how do we do it in such a way that WASM 2.0 comes quite straightforwardly, and we get this efficient reference interpreter, etc. So this is the normal way of doing things. We've got the WASM community basically creating the implementations, creating the pros, etc. It feeds into what the specification is going to be, and and with the formalism, etc. And then all that lot's done, and now we come along and have a play with our particular mechanizations, and then start doing the PLE things in terms of analysis. And in particular, Conrad lucked out because he was good, which is that you can do a feedback loop and actually really, really affect the specification if you are lucky. So, and that's what happened. But that's only, the sort of start of the story. The real challenge is, what does it mean for that lot to continue? And even without Conrad falling down with exhaustion, or whatever it might be. So I think many of us in this room have been trying to understand what's it mean to make this lot better. And in particular, what does it mean to sort of really evolve, getting, because we're in a PL conference, getting formal methods embedded in this standardization process in such a way that it's easy. I think that's the point. Of course, it's embedded already. So let's just take a little bit of look at what's going on with the standard. You've got formal specification. Well, there's a couple of two experts here. How many others do it? I don't know enough about the ecosystem, but there's not going to be many. And there's prose descriptions. Well, you have to understand that, so then you have to do some boring prose. And test suite, I guess, that's many people can start thinking about that. And the OCaml reference interpreter. I have a feeling some obvious suspects are doing quite a lot of work. And it will be very nice if some of this could be done better. And it can. First, and we're off to the side. Never mind, we've got a bit of a loop. But this, the mechanization is off to the side. It's either there or it's not. Doesn't matter. We would like to try to understand better. And what's happened is that there's a new game in town, and I'm going on to the next slide because I think it's easy. There's a new game in town, which is these guys. And it started because of a Dagstuhl. Was it last year? Last year's Dagstuhl, huh? And we ended up on the last evening having wine in a tiny little room and thrashing some of this stuff out. And basically what happened was Suk-Young was at the beginning of the Dagstuhl saying, I've done JavaScript standard. I know how to take JavaScript prose and push it to have an interpreter and work with automatically with the standard. And then she said right at the end, I wonder whether we could do something for WASM, but it has to be the other way. Or, with a bit of a chat, it was, yeah, but it's the other way. But basically what was extremely amazing was that Suk-Young at the beginning of the week went, I have a gang of people. And it was, whoa, how does this gang of people get used? And nicely used. And that's turned into this lot. And basically what we've done, starting with Andreas, is create this WASM domain-specific language. And so basically, Andreas, what he's doing is you've got code, but you've got code with annotations. And the idea is that the annotations give enough information that for free, we have the formalism, the prose, the testing, the interpreter, and the mechanization definitions. And in particular, do it in such a way that coders who like standards, and especially the WASM standard, can be part of helping here and not too irritated by annotations. Yeah, so there's actually sort of quite a fine line as to what that design space should be. And I think it's fair to say we're on the way that rather than really, really know. But we do know in the sense that there's a whole story to tell here that is Suk-Young's story that's going to happen, Suk-Young and others' story that's going to happen any minute. Yeah. So before then, let me just put this bit in just to finish my part of the story. So this is the old way of doing it, and now we've got a new way of doing it. And with the new way of doing it, we've got this WASM DSL with now the automatic generation of the things needed by the specification, and we've got the automatic generation of the definitions. For Coq, Isabel, Lean, Actor. So there's lots of people very interested, and there was some photos a while back. I'm not going to pinpoint everybody. And the point is, so I should actually put those other icons there now. Sorry, Sam, who is Actor. The idea is we've got this sort of actually really embedded in the standard. That would be really a cool thing, because developing these mechanized definitions is actually quite, it's labor intensive. And then kapow, what about doing the proofs and the analysis, etc.? This is really in research land. But in particular, one obvious question is we can automatically generate the mechanized definitions. Can we automatically also generate the proofs? That turns into real research now rather than the engineering thing of whether something like that is possible. And we have to do it in such a way that we don't kill the annotations here. Yeah? So this I think is a lovely research style question, not just what does it mean to embed language, to do language specification well, and in particular embed mechanization into that language specification. And of course, in the Coq-land at least, we want to do it in such a way that the previous part, most of my talk, gets embedded in here so that we can do the expansion to WASM 2.0 easier, etc. Are we going to find that the dependent types are getting too much? Are we not? We don't know the answer to this. We're just going to explore. Thank you very much. you.